on a keeper, up across the 15, cuts left at the 20, on the room at the 30, headed to the near sideline, one man to beat, makes the move at midfield, coming to the near side at the 30, he's at the 20, he's at the 10, 5, touchdown, Kentucky!
And Gershon and Vinny Hardy here. Another episode of Believe in Kentucky AG. We're coming to the people live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Believe Podcast Network, and baseball is what we're kind of starting the night off with, man.
It's pretty cool, man. They've deserved it. They've deserved it. Was over there at Nick Mingione's little press conference earlier today. Cool to see the bleachers they added in left center field there at KPP, anticipating big crowds this weekend, big crowds for the NCAA tournament regional, and as long as they don't have a crazy drop off, and other teams, like every team in the country needs to do what they got to do, a chance to play 2 postseason rounds at home, because I would be stunned at this point if they're not in that top 8 to host a super regional. As of now, they're the projected number 1 overall seed in the whole thing. So it's crazy to think about. It's crazy to see that. Kentucky was picked to finish 5th in the SEC East, I believe it was. There are still times when you watch this team, it's like, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, it's just like, man, like they don't feel like that juggernaut that Tennessee was 2 years ago, right? When they had that insane offense with like 8 draft picks and a couple of really great pitchers. They don't feel like LSU last year, where you had the top 2 overall picks and a bunch of really, really good players up and down that LSU roster. But they just find ways to get it done and win games. And I mean, they're in position to do something they've only done one other time in school history, and that's win an SEC regular season title. And just like I say during basketball season, I think when you win a regular season title, it holds more weight. I think the only sport football is a little different, just because you have to play your way into that title game, and then it ends up being the 2 best teams in the league. And now it'll actually be the 2 best teams in the league playing in that championship game, regardless of division. But basketball, baseball, softball, all those, I feel the same way. I would feel like it would, obviously, if you can go win the whole thing in Hoover, that'd be awesome. But to me, this is what holds weight. This is what really, really matters, and would be a super impressive accomplishment.
Yeah, he said from being picked 5th, so
Yep.
upper middle of the pack. And if they lose 2 out of 3, we hope not, but that will still give them more SEC wins than they've ever had. They'll give them 21.
Right.
You know, if they lose 2 out of 3, they'll be 21-9. 06, they went 20-10, so they still will have made history. And like you said, this is no disrespect. It's Vanderbilt, and it's always that fight. Like you mentioned, they don't feel like a top tier team, even though they've been at the top of the league most of the year. To make that climb, that means somebody has to slip. And Vanderbilt isn't the same Vanderbilt, because they've won multiple College World Series championships, and a powerhouse. And for them, this is a down year for Vanderbilt, and so hopefully Kentucky can kind of just pounce on them and finish the season strong, because that's Vandy's only thing between them and the SEC championship right now, man.
That's exactly right. Yeah, Vandy is definitely not the same Vandy. I mean, they're going to be an NCAA tournament team, but they're not going to be a host. They're obviously not in the running to. They're not a threat to Kentucky for the SEC lead. It's down to really Arkansas and Tennessee are the only 2 teams still a threat to them. They're just 12-15 in the SEC. They're only 3-10 away from home, so they've really struggled outside of Nashville, and they've also lost 3 series in a row here. They lost one to Georgia, I believe, got swept down in Athens. They're one of the hottest teams in the country. Lost 2 out of 3 at home to Mississippi State, who's having a nice bounce back year. And then last weekend lost 2 out of 3 at home to Tennessee. So they're scuffling of late. They've lost a lot on the road this year. So it's a series you got to take advantage of. But like you said, they're still Vanderbilt. They're still a very talented team. They still have had Kentucky's number over the years. I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head the last time Kentucky won a series against Vanderbilt, because I definitely know they lost that series down there last year. It might have even been a sweep. I can't remember off the top of my head. So, Vanderbilt's had their number for quite some time on the diamond. But you're catching them at a right time where they're struggling a little bit. But Kentucky, they just got to take 2 to secure at least a share. If they sweep, they'll win the whole thing. Or even if you, I guess if they get some help too, they could still win the whole thing. So really, really big series here. I think maybe the biggest series. I'd have to go back and look, but maybe the biggest series in regular season history, just for what is at stake here historically. NCAA tournament seeding for those who are big SEC tournament people. SEC tournament seeding, right? So a lot at stake. You're gonna have really good crowds. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So I think the biggest key for Kentucky is simply going to be get that bullpen back on track, because they've been able to. They were able to survive 2 games where the bullpen just like it is melted down, and their closer Johnny Hummel has not been the same guy. So they got to get some more length out of the starting pitching, put less pressure on the bullpen, but they also got to get the bullpen figured out and straightened out. And if so, I think they'll win this series just fine and go into the postseason, at least with a share of the SEC championship.
So Tennessee is playing South Carolina at home to finish out. Who does Arkansas have? I had not looked to see who they.
I will get that to right now. But Kentucky, obviously, I'm not sure with shares how it works.
Yeah.
But obviously, they have to go to A&M, who's obviously had a great year.
Okay.
But I don't know how it works with shares and tiebreakers. Obviously, Kentucky has any tiebreaker with Arkansas. But again, they don't have it with Tennessee. So I'm not sure how that would work if they ended up tied. I would think it's still a share. That's how it is in basketball, I know. So we'll have to see. That would just affect the SEC tournament seeding is my guess. So if you're Kentucky and you want to just win the whole thing, no worrying about a split, saying you're a co-champ, whatever, just go out and sweep.
And some of what, we hope wouldn't happen against Florida tried to happen, and they still won 2 out of 3. But you got a lot of fight from Florida, who hasn't
absolutely
been what they were supposed to be all year. The one kid, that freshman, dominated when the game they did win. He was untouchable. The big kid, Lance, was it Parker or something? I forget.
I forget the name off the top of my head, but Saturday guy.
Yeah, and they had to win the Friday game like 3 times, because they get a lead, couldn't hold it. Get a lead, couldn't hold it. You talked about the bullpen already. They beat Florida 3 times Friday to win once, because they just couldn't. Yeah, up 3, and then it's tied, and they're up again, and then it's tied. So, and then they get them again on Sunday. So, my fear was that, hey, this Florida team is going to be playing the way they were projected to play, and Kentucky's going to catch them, hot. So they win that series and get out of there with 2 out of 3. And thankfully, Vanderbilt was able to beat Tennessee Sunday to keep Kentucky with that 1-game cushion.
That's right.
So here we are.
Yeah. Just a huge opportunity that you have in your ballpark. That's for sure. And you just got to find a way to get it done. Like I said, Vanderbilt has just struggled all year long on the road. They've just struggled overall of late. They're not the same Vanderbilt team as we usually see. We usually see just a dominant pitching staff. And even when they don't have Walker Buehler, David Price, and Sonny Gray, we usually just see amazing pitching out of Vanderbilt and some really solid offense. But you just look at them looking right now. They're 7th in the league in batting average. They're around league average. They're below average in slugging percentage and ranking 10th in the conference. They're 13th in on-base percentage, which is second to last, only to Vanderbilt. So they're, offensively not quite clicking. 13th in home runs. That's obviously also second to least. So they're not slugging much. They're not getting on base at a high enough rate for their liking, I'm sure. And then you go look at their pitching stats. ERA wise, they're 6, so right in the middle of the pack. Kentucky 7, so not anything crazy bad there. The 3rd in opponent batting average, so they're they don't have that stud pitcher, but overall their staff is getting it done. offense isn't great, and maybe that is the type of team Kentucky needs to see, because outside of Hagen Smith and like the kid from Saturday that you mentioned there at Florida, and I think one kid from South Carolina, the offense has been able to do enough in mostly every game this season. It's just been the bullpen not holding up their end of the bargain. That was kind of the issue going into the season. You just look at the roster. So Vanderbilt's not a great offensive team. Maybe that helps you out a little bit. Score just enough, and you should be fine. But it's still Vanderbilt. They're still going to be playing in an NCAA tournament here. The pedigree there, the dominance they've had over UK. I'm pulling up this history now, but I'm not expecting it to be all that pretty. So, we'll see how things go. But if you're Kentucky, you got to feel pretty confident.
Yeah. Yep. So just keep doing what you're doing, and then this Kentucky Proud Park has finally been able to be the park and the vibe and the atmosphere that everybody hoped for when they built it.
Yes.
And you were there for the Tennessee series and the Arkansas series, and those records are probably about to be broken this weekend.
They might. Yeah, they might. And now that you have that bleacher, there's going to be even more people. At least I expect all the records from last year's NCAA tournament to skyrocket. And I mean, look, if you're able to really get the number 1 overall seed in that tournament, man, it's just like Tennessee blowing what they did. It was so catastrophic 2 years ago, because you just look at the path and it's there for you. I mean, you're going to play the weakest host if they get through, or the team that doesn't win that regional. You're not going to get the toughest regional draw as far as teams coming in here. So, if they're able to win this series, win the outright SEC, or win at least a share of the SEC title, I think it would all depend on RPI. And, you'd probably have to go win a game in the NCAA tournament to feel good about that 1 seed. But even just finishing in the top, obviously want to finish in the top 8. They're going to finish in the top 8, but they're number 1 in the RPI right now. If they maintain that, they maintain their lead in the SEC, I think they are going to be the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. And that is just like, it sets up beautifully for them to get to Omaha for the first time. So we'll see what happens here.
Never ranked number 1 in the polls all season.
No,
but going back to that strength of schedule, like you talked about, all those road games, road wins, and strength of schedule was number 1 in the country, and to not be ranked number 1 ever, but to be right there for the number 1 overall seed is
yeah. I don't think they've ever even been a national seed. I know 2006 they were not. Obviously, they were not in 2017 when they had to go to Louisville, and they weren't last year when they had to go to Baton Rouge. I think this would be the first time in program history. Fact check me if I'm wrong here, but I think they would be the only. It'll be the first time in history, no matter what, that they are a national seed, which is impressive in its own right.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, and Coach Mingione was on Coach Madison's staff in 06 when they won it. So he's got ties. He was there and knows what it's like. He wasn't the head coach, but he was part of that.
Sure was.
First historic team as far as Kentucky baseball is concerned. And now, 18 years later, he's trying to go and duplicate that and then exceed what they did. AJ Reed was that dude back then. He was a stud on that squad.
Well, he was before the 06 team was Calgill, I believe, right? It wasn't Colin Calgill that started that one. Yeah, AJ Reed was a little later.
Calgill, like I don't messed up. Calgill that old? No shade, but is he that old?
He is, man.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think he's the first base. At least recently, he was the first base coach for the Reds.
That's right.
So he's coaching already. Yeah, he just got inducted in the UK Hall of Fame within the last couple of years here too. Yeah, no,
he was pretty 20 years old.
And he's a Lexington guy because he went to Henry Clay, which is where my girlfriend went. So he was. That was Colin Calgill's squad, but
his sophomore year or whatever.
Yeah, time flies. I know. That's all good.
Boy, yeah, my bad. Sorry, Colin.
No.
Yeah,
no, you're good. But Colin Calgill, the 06 team, and then AJ Reed was 2014 draft maybe off the top of my head. But look, they they don't have. It's not the richest baseball program, right? They've had some really good players come through it. But the history, when we're talking about 3 years, right? 2016, 17, and 23 are the ones everyone remembers. And, at this rate, people are going to start remembering this one. But you got to go out and you got to go finish the deal here. And you're in. I think no matter what, they're going to be in excellent position to get to Omaha. And it starts this weekend by, solidifying this SEC, holding their end of the bargain in the RPI, and then, taking it from there.
For sure. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, not Friday, Saturday, Sunday this time.
That's right. Tomorrow night.
A day early. So, season finishes a day early. So everybody going out to KPP. Game 1 is tomorrow night instead of Friday. So just put that on your calendar.
I think it's an early game Saturday. I think it's like a nooner, something like that.
Every now and then they slip in those Thursday, Friday, Saturdays.
Yes. Yeah, I know they do it at the end of the regular season because of Hoover. But yes, so Kentucky won't play in Hoover, I'm guessing, till Wednesday or Thursday. I think Wednesday is probably when they'll get a double bye in the SEC tournament.
Double bye in baseball. That is nice too.
Yep.
Darren Hedrick just down there killing time instead of having to call all the games.
Yeah. I mean, what year was it? 2 years ago, right? When they went down there as the last seed and they won all those games and got all the way to the And there was a bunch of weather too, so it made it an even longer week. But
and they gave it a good fight. They
gave it a great fight. They got to the semifinals.
Yes, sir. They sure did. And they played Tennessee that time. And
Tennessee knocked them out. Yes. Yeah, they beat Auburn in the first round. I think and then if you get through that first round, it becomes double elimination. And I think they lost to either LSU or Vanderbilt. I can't remember. I think it was LSU. Came back and beat Vanderbilt and LSU, got to that semifinal, lost to Tennessee. But they made a great run there. Last year, they ran into a really good picture with Alabama, got shut out. But again, my opinion on it is like, you just take care of this weekend, and then whatever happens in Hoover's gravy. But take care of this weekend. Go win this series. Go win that outright title. It's really hard to win 20 plus games in the SEC. And if they win this series, they're talking at least 22. Like that's very hard to do. Especially you just look at the SEC and everyone's like, oh, it's down this year, and it's like, is it, or is it just more balanced? Like, is it even more stacked? You can look at it. There's two different ways to look at it. Obviously, LSU is not the LSU of last year when you lose Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens. Like that was kind of inevitable. Florida has not been at all what they were supposed to be, but they're still a top 30 team in the RPI. So this SEC is loaded, and to win 20 plus games in this conference is a hell of an accomplishment. And I think that they'll be remembered as long as you can finish this deal off and get at least a split of this SEC. They're going to be a team that no one forgets, even no matter what happens in Hoover.
That's right. Had you been down there to Hoover to cover the tournament?
I haven't, and I won't. I'm not going to be able to make it next week. But I will say, if I think the College World Series is like the 14th through the 24th, which works well because I have a vacation at the end of June, but it would be before it. So if they get to Omaha, I will be there.
Yeah, that's one of those, once in a lifetime things for real, because it's never happened before.
I will. Yeah, I've been to Omaha, I think once or twice, obviously not for the World Series, but I've driven by that ballpark, and I've always thought it'd be really cool to cover one there and see Kentucky playing there. So hopefully for them, they'll get there.
Yeah, for sure. On the football side, there was a little news. Basketball side, not as much, but we got a punter, Aiden Loris. Is that his name?
Pull this up real quick. It has been a Laros, I think it is. Aiden Laros. I'm going to go with Laros if he can correct me if I'm wrong later. But they needed that, honestly. Like, I think this is very, very similar to what they did with Alex Raynor, right? Where last year, Chance Poore is a guy who got his chance several different times, and it just didn't work out for him at the place kicker position. And they needed someone that they could trust to come in there and make kicks, make the routine look routine. They bring in Rayner, and he only missed one field goal all year, and he only missed one extra point that was blocked. And the only field goal he missed was I think it was a 53-yarder or something like that against Tennessee.
Yeah.
So now you bring in Laros here, who was an all FCS All-American. He was the FCS punter of the year. He believed he had a 71-yard boot, which is pretty good. Not bad at all. I know he kicked field goals a little bit last year too, or he did. He kicked extra points is what I'm seeing. Oh no, he did. He kicked 16 field goal attempts. So I guess he was doing both for UT Martin. But you just needed. And I know he's a rugby style. I don't know how much they'll let him really do that, given the fact their kind of scheme with Jay Boulware doesn't really call for that. We'll see what they let him do. But 52 punts, average 47.5. Longest 71. That's an upgrade over what Wilson Berry was doing for you. Remember, Wilson Berry won the starting job as a freshman. I believe it was in 2021, and then Colin Goodfellow kind of won that job back and held on to it until he got hurt last year. Yeah. So, they didn't really – he wasn't even their initial starter. And then last year – they didn't add anyone. We kept asking Mark Stoops when, Wilson was struggling, hey, are you going to make a change here? Are you going to make a change here? And it just didn't seem like they were confident with any of the options there. So, they wrote it out with Barry. He had a rough year. And now you're bringing Laros, who, from everything I've heard, he's got a bomb of a leg. He's, like I said, FCS All-American, FCS Punter of the Year, reliable guy who's going to flip field position for you. I remember I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. I don't have it in front of me, but I do remember watching UT Martin play Georgia a little bit last year, and Georgia's their starting field position in the game was awful. And I remember the punter stood out, and they were talking about the punter on TV, and that was Adrian Lara. So you need to be able to flip field position in the SEC. You don't want to give teams anything easier than it already will be for some of the quarterbacks and offenses you have in this league. So I think that was a very smart move. You have the scholarship. You have the scholarship number that allowed you to do that. Go out and get a guy who you feel comfortable with at that position. We're talking about a 7-yard difference between their averages. One punt inside the 20 for Wilson Berry last year. Laros, I saw the number. It was more than one. I lost it, but I'll find it. So, again, I just think, special teams, we know how much it killed them 2 years ago. Last year it was better, but the punting game was not great. They were great in the return game. They were great in the field goal kicking game. So now if you get a trusted punter, you feel good about Rayner, you got Barry on Brown. All three phases of the kicking game, you have a chance to be elite. And that, that helps. That is the difference in some games.
Because 2 years ago, it was a deadly combination because you had the brutal special teams and then the bad offense so you were starting off backed up, no explosives. So you never got any kind of traction on any drive.
Goodfellow was their best special teamer that year, but they couldn't protect for him. So it was just a disaster. And then last year, again, I don't mean to rip on Wilson Berry, but he was kind of the guy who struggled in that special teams unit. That was much better. So I feel like they clearly felt the need to upgrade that position and use some more that's 3 scholarships on kicker/punters, right? When Rayner, Wilson Berry, now all 4, and they brought in that kid from Montana. So they are committed to not messing around on special teams. You can't say that Mark Stoops is not taking that seriously.
Yeah, and loading up and, like you said, upgrading. And Rayner has been, came in and been just solid.
Yes.
Not missing a beat,
he was awesome.
Moment too big for him. None of that stuff. Dude just comes in and, like you said, make the routine the routine. Yes. And that's what he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he didn't really have many opportunities last year because that offense was so boom or bust. I think he was 10 of 11 on field goals, and his only miss was it was a 50-plus yarder. It was against Tennessee, like I said. And then he had an extra point blocked against Florida. But other than that, he was perfect. Chanceport did a great job as the kickoff guy when he was healthy. I'm guessing Rayner will take that over now that Poor's graduated, but they're in a really good place, I think, personnel-wise in that unit. And then, this roster, I think the areas you look at that I wouldn't say worry you, but are going to be what kind of makes and breaks just what you feel like the ceiling for this team could be. I think they got to find, I think we talked about DJ Waller on here when they signed him, but they got to find answers at that cornerback position behind or across the field from Maxwell Harrison in the slot, whether it's Jansen Dunn, DJ Waller, some of the other guys they have on this roster. That was an Achilles heel for the defense last year. I just think they need bounce back years out of their safeties. I know that Jordan Lovett and Zion Childress, I thought, had great years in 2022. I don't think either played great last year. Both guys were dealing with injuries in camp, so hopefully that doesn't, hurt them in any way, getting ready for this year, but they just need more out of that secondary. I think that's the one area on this team that you look at. If you got to make sure that's in order. And then I would think the second one has to be just the physicality aspect. With the offensive line, I think it's better. Again, I think Gerald Mincy is a good player that'll help him at right tackle. I think that Jalen Farmer is going to start at right guard. I think they've been really impressed with the camp he's had. You feel great about Marcus and Eli Cox. You need more from Jagger Burton at left. You got to have more from Jagger Burton at left guard, or you got to just plug Dylan Ray in there and bite the bullet. That Burton just didn't work out. So, and then we'll see what happens in the run game with who steps up in that running back room. It'll probably be Chip Trainum, but every year that he's been a coordinator, Bush Hamden's had a 1,000-yard rusher. Do they have a guy who's capable of that? We'll find out. So, those are the question marks on this roster. But, up and down, you look at it and you feel really good. But I think the last 2 years, now you got to prove it because they haven't proven it the last 2 years.
Yeah. Had a running back decommitment. You mentioned Trainum, who's, probably the lead guy, but had a running back was leaning to Ohio State is where they think he's going. Trying to think of dude's name. Where was it at?
The one that decommitted?
Yeah.
I believe
West. Isaiah West.
I didn't want to mix them up. I know there are two. Yeah, Isaiah West. Yeah, I think that was just a numbers game little thing there that happened. I know, you never want to lose a top 200 or so recruit with Isaiah West, but you just got that commitment from Marquise Davis, who is actually ranked a little bit higher, the one that, everyone kind of locked in for Michigan there, out of Cleveland, picks Kentucky. Kentucky does have 2 freshman running backs on this year's team. They have just one in next year's class, so they're going to have that's 3 young running backs that would be in line to be on this team next year. You have Jamarian Wilcox, who is going to be a rising redshirt sophomore next year. Chip is out of years. Demi's out of years. But you have Jason Patterson. So is that 2 freshman running backs. You'll have 2 sophomore running backs next year. One will probably be a redshirt freshman in Munzel. You'll have Wilcox back. So there's a lot of young running backs in that room. And you would think with the youth, they'll probably add a transfer there too. So, for Isaiah West, it probably made sense with the addition of Marquise Davis. But, that you never want to lose the top 200, 300 guy. But, they have depth at that position. I think they're doing a really good job recruiting there.
We are live streaming, as always, on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Y'all subscribe and follow all those pages. Listen on Apple Podcasts and keep track of it every time we do a live episode. Got College Sportscast calling in or commenting in saying that the defense could be special.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
it's all going to depend on the secondary, but the front 7 is up there with the best in the. I mean, I wouldn't say they're the best in the SEC. I'm never going to put them ahead of the boys they got in Georgia, and still Alabama still got Alabama dudes all over the defense. But
you add a Dumas Johansson behind Deion Walker,
right? And you put him next to D-Jack. You put him next to D-Jack, who is as steady as it gets. You obviously, like you said, you have Deion Walker in the middle there. But last year, I mean, the defensive line was just, they had different guys that were interchangeable that they can move. Like Josiah Hayes had a really good year. Keyshawn Silver did some good things. Octavius Oxendine really bounced back, especially toward the end of the year, and was kind of more like the guy we saw in 2021 before he got hurt. So Khalil Saunders flashed early in the season. Like, they got dudes all over that D line. I know there's a lot of injuries. There were a lot of guys who missed time in camp. We'll see. Hopefully none of those are going to impact the season. I know Mark Stoops said 9 were out. He expected at least 6 to be ready for the start of fall camp. I've heard rumblings that there might be one serious one in there. I don't know who it is. We'll find out, later down the road. They might add a transfer to that room. But still, you still feel really good about the depth they have in that defensive line room. Even some of the redshirt freshmen there, like one of the Smith twins. I'm not even going to try. Which one's the D lineman? Is it Gerard or let's see. Yes, Gerard's the D lineman. Yeah. His brother Jacob, I believe, is an outside or inside backer. So, and then you have JJ Weaver too, who's part of that front 7, and he's coming into year 6. Really caught heat at the end of last season. If he's fully healthy, we all know what he's capable of. And a guy I'm high on and want to see more of this year, in that outside linebacker room is Tyrese Fairbury. I think he's got a lot of speed and athleticism to him that flashed early on last season as well. So, I think the defensively in the front 7, they have a chance to be one of the better run defenses in the country and have success there, but in the pass rush and be improved in the pass rush. But the secondary is going to be what defines them, right? We know what Maxwell Harrison's going to bring. He's going to be a number 1 corner, but who's going to step up across the field? Are the safeties going to bounce back to what they were in 2022? Because if not, it does limit what this defense can do. Because you look at the quarterbacks that are on the schedule this year, and they play a lot of the top ones in the SEC. I mean, you're talking Carson Beck, who I think is going to be the number 1 overall pick in the 25 draft, I'd have to guess. Jackson Dart, who's been there forever. Graham Mertz, you got to give him his flowers. He had an amazing year. The Nico kid at Tennessee is going to be a star. And then you got Quinn Ewers. It's a loaded slate of quarterbacks you're going up against. So you need them to hold up their end of the bargain.
That's it. Nobody, fellow Harlan County, and says that the O-line is the reason the D-line was banged up. We had 8 guys, 8 guys out at the spring game.
Let's hope, that might be a good thing though, if the O-line was getting wins in camp, because I can tell you from watching the open practices in 22 and 23, the defensive line was kicking some ass up there, and there wasn't many wins for that O-line. So that would be a good thing, honest. Not injuries, of course, but if the offensive line was getting some wins, especially against that group, because it's a really good group.
That's true.
I wouldn't read into anything you saw in the spring game because, Vinny, you were there. Obviously, I know they had a walk-on offensive line playing with the first team D line. Like, that's how banged up that room was at the end of camp, or end of spring camp. So, I wouldn't read if you're going based on that. I wouldn't read into that, but. If the offensive line had some victories before some of those injuries started to pile up. And again, Deion Walker was out this spring too, just to clean up with his elbow or his shoulder. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you take that because the offensive line needs some confidence.
Yeah, maybe old Wolford's infused some of that back into him.
I think so. Yeah.
College Sportscast. What about Cortland Ford?
Yeah, he's probably right now. I know he missed camp. He's recovering from a wrist surgery, so he didn't think he worked during camp, but it wasn't like he wasn't on the field. He wasn't going up against. He was doing individual stuff. So I would think he's in line to be the backup again. It would kind of be your swing tackle this season. He's got 2 years left. I know he's listed as a senior, but I think he's listed as a senior. He does have another year after this. They got him as a 3-year guy. Gerald Mincy only has 1 left. So, that's someone who may, if you keep him out of the transfer portal, could be your starter at right tackle or left next year because both Marcus Cox and Gerald Mincy won't be here. But I would say he's probably in line to be your swing tackle like you. I don't think Gerald Mincy is going to lose that job. And then you know what you're getting in Marcus Cox, who I think played a really, really good left tackle for you last year.
Absolutely. So good stuff on football. Compared to the past few weeks, it's not been as much going on. It's a little bit of a slower week as far as whatever the news is as far as Kentucky's concerned. But it's nice getting all the updates. Appreciate all the updates that you providing. And look, y'all know Aaron is on top of everything at the Cat's Paws. If you're not reading him there, you should. on top of all the sports. You got a good article about the baseball that we just talked about right now. Talking about the 06 team, this year's team, stats about Vanderbilt and how Kentucky needs to just go ahead and pounce on them and avenge a lot of losing they've been doing to Vanderbilt for a lot of years.
That's right. That is exactly right. But yeah, no, like you said, it hasn't been the busiest 7 days, I guess, since Trent Noah broke last week. But, right now, flipping over to basketball, this is the week that'll kind of start jump-starting what the rest of Kentucky's roster is going to look like, right? NBA Combine is happening now. I don't think it ended. I don't know if it ended today or if it's still going on after today. I was watching some of the scrimmaging today, but that was the G League camp or combine was last weekend, so that's in the books now. And those are, 3 guys Kentucky's targeting are participating in those, and that being Chaz Lanier from North Florida, Jackson Robinson from BYU, and Woga Poplar from Miami. So I think you'll start, especially with Lanier, probably seeing that heat up in the next couple of days to week there. I think Robinson will probably really go down to the 29th. But if they were to get a commitment from Chaz Lanier, I think it's not going to happen with Jackson Robinson. I just think, they've made it clear. We've heard some of the interviews with Mark Pope that have come out recently. I think Cody Fieger was on. I know we talked to UK Sports Network. I think it was KSR. I don't think it was a national show, but he talked about, specifically they're looking for 12. They want to get to all 13, but right now they're focused on 2 spots, and it's kind of what we've been talking about, right? They want to get that all around score that can just get a basket whenever they want. Those 3 options right now are Lanier, Robinson, and Poplar. I think Lanier is the one that they're going at the hardest right now because he just finished up the G League Combine. He knows he's not going to go pro. It's going to be a battle between them and Tennessee. He's from Nashville. So I think that's kind of where their focus is right now. If they don't get him, I think they'll keep pushing the tires on Jackson Robinson, who Mark Pope obviously has a relationship with. Yeah. I think it's been really smart that Mark Pope and I think Alvin Brooks has been there too, have been at the camps or at the combines in Chicago, meeting with those guys, showing their interest in those guys, being there for them, supporting them, all that good stuff. So I really think if they get a commitment from Lanier, I think you can kind of let Jackson Robinson do his own thing. I've heard there's a lot of Kansas buzz out there anyway. I think you kind of just say, okay, we got our scorer in Lanier. And then, that other roster need is for more depth at that 4 position. You feel really good about what Andrew Carr can do, but you need another body, especially at the 4 position where fouls pile up. So Ansley Alamonor, I believe it is, Ansley Alamonor. I'll get that right if he ends up here. But the transfer from Fairleigh Dickinson, who is a really good 3-shooter, first of all. So if you're looking for another 4 that can stretch the floor, that's a guy who can do it. He shot almost 40%, 39.4 from 3 last year on a ton of attempts. I think he made 93. So the attempts were at like 200 from 3. You're talking another guy who has NCAA tournament experience. He was a starter on that Fairleigh Dickinson team that, of course, beat Purdue, won their game in the first 4. So he's played in 3 NCAA tournament games, was an all-conference first-teamer, out there last year at Fairleigh Dickinson. So good size, can score the basketball, can rebound. I think would be a really good fit there to slide in behind Carr and add more depth to this front court. Even probably could play him at the 3 at 6'7". So I think that's their main target at that position. I think they're in good shape there. He's on campus right now. There hasn't been a ton of interest for whatever reason in him. Just I've heard Siena is actually the school they're battling for him. So you got to feel good they can beat Siena there. I know he's a New York guy and all that, but still he should be able to beat Siena. So I think that would be when Fieger's talking, okay, we're going to get to 12 spots and then handle the 13th later. I think Alamonar is your target for that 4 position. And then, like I said, Lanier, Robinson, Poplar, probably in that order to be your all-around scorer next year. And then as far as that 13th spot, they can go a lot of different ways. They can add he's a senior with a ton of experience that can come in and be a factor. They can add a guy who's a freshman that is maybe a developmental piece. They could add a reclass kid, whether they're highly regarded or just another developmental guy. You could do a lot of different things, but it does seem like at least they're going to fill out the entire roster and use all 13 spots, which is not something obviously John Calipari did, and I'm not bashing him for that. A lot of coaches don't do it, but it's just something different at Kentucky, and something that wouldn't have happened with Cal. I don't know if you saw, he's been, and again, I'm not trying to go down that rabbit hole, but he's talking about how they're only going to have 8 to 9 guys scholarship-wise on that Arkansas team, and then they're going to fill out the rest with walk-ons and GAs who are like not far removed from playing, and try to be like get a lot of work done in practice and really be a team. So that's all good and dandy. I'm just saying that it's a different philosophy. It's different than what we've seen it's different than what we've seen in the past with Cal. So it's interesting. It's a new strategy that it's very well thought out. And I think, I think the Lanier stuff will probably get within the week, or probably 7 to 10 days. We'll know where he's ended up. Robinson is going to last longer. And again, I think if they get Lanier, you can kind of not worry about Robinson and Poplar much more. I just think that they're not going to take 2 of those scores.
Yeah. I mean, just a matter of who's ready to commit, who's coming, or if you're not coming, well, we got a guy over here we can get. That's that whole thing. That's how that'll play. And I thought, I don't know, maybe it is Lanier, maybe not. We don't, but Tennessee was thinking they were kind of in or are in good shape with him too. And if Kentucky moves in and just snatches him from their grasp, that'd be
Yeah, and I haven't gotten to look too much at what Tennessee's done this offseason. I know they've added a couple of portal pieces, but their pitch to Lanier, I'm sure, is, hey, look at what we did with Mr. Connect, and that's gonna be tough. All right, and that's his home state, so and Tennessee's got NIL, so it'll be a battle. It's been a battle from day one, but it seems like Kentucky it's pretty damn close, if not Kentucky having a slight edge. I think they're doing a really good job, in that battle, from everything I understand in that situation. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes visits to both of those schools and decides after that type of thing. But from all I've heard, they're in a pretty good spot, but Tennessee is definitely a threat.
And Kentucky's NIL seems to be coming along from all accounts. Teaser for next week, we should have somebody from Club 15 on here for the first few minutes. We'll have a guest first 15, 20 minutes, and kind of get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and got that penciled in. Hopefully we can get that locked in for next episode. For y'all listening now, just put that in your ear for next week and be able to look forward to hopefully hearing somebody who is from within, behind those walls, that are behind the scenes doing what they're doing, and how it's all coming together for Kentucky NIL and where they're at and what's next and all that kind of stuff too. So we shall see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw the Club Blue hit their goal. They already hit $1 million since Mark Pope has been named head coach. So that's obviously good stuff. I know they're going to have an event, some sort of meet and greet or something at Rep Arena next month. So some really cool stuff going on there. And the fan base is bought in and as united as ever. So good stuff.
Yeah, it was, you gotta get that right if you're trying to compete.
Absolutely.
Get it all. If it's fractured, mend fences and get everything pointed in the right direction. Everybody rowing the same way, whatever, cliche you want to say. Because if it's not, you're not gonna make it.
Yes, that is the deal at this point. You gotta have the money. You gotta be able to pony up, as Mark Stoops would like to say.
Exactly.
You really do have to be able to in this day and age. And Kentucky's in a good spot. They're already in a pretty good spot, but I think this Club Blue stuff that, for whatever reason, didn't really happen under Cal. I don't know who's to blame for that. It just wasn't really a thing. I've heard of the Club Blue stuff with the women's team and some of the other sports, but I hadn't heard it with men's basketball at all. So it's good to see, them getting involved in that.
Yeah, everybody under the same umbrella or whatever now. So
yes.
And we talk about restaurants on here, and when Jalen's on, we talk about places he needs to try. a mainstay in Lexington, Jeff Ruby's. I don't know if you saw the personalized menus they had.
I did see that.
Colin Chandler and Trent Noah's getting one. Just a nice little touch when you go sit down and get wine and dined, and there's the menu with your picture on it and your Kentucky uniform. So I thought that was a nice little touch, man, from Jeff Ruby.
I do. I love it. And yeah, it's really cool seeing those guys on camp. I guess Trent had. I mean, obviously he's a Kentucky fan. He's been to Rupp Arena, I'm sure, before. He's probably done the camps and stuff like that. I'm guessing that's not speaking for him, but it's really. He never got to take an official visit because Cal didn't recruit him. So it was cool to finally, see him in Lexington and in the blue and all that. Colin Chandler just getting back home to the States, or I guess he was in DC recently, but getting back home, from his mission there, getting to go to the to campus for the first time and see some of the pictures he put out. So really cool stuff there. Like I said, there's just a positive energy around this program, and just everyone kind of on the same page type thing that we haven't seen here in a long time. That's refreshing. And obviously, winning once we get to the games and there's some struggles like that, then we could talk, and I'm sure the fans will start being a little divided. That's just what happens. But right now, like, everyone kind of has the same thing as in mind, and same hope and same belief and excitement for this roster, for this coaching staff, this just fresh start all together. And I think it's really good to see. And I think it's just something the fan base needed.
Yeah. And I definitely wasn't forgetting the women. That's when I said under the same umbrella. I mean, when you go to the Club 15 NIL website, now you can pick your sport, and they're all every single sport is under there. So yes, when I say under umbrella, that's what they're all there. Correct. For you to support, subscribe, and donate and contribute to whichever one you want to do now. So yeah, but the women's basketball team and Kenny Brooks is doing big things, but they're definitely under that Club 15 NIL window too. And we hit on it before, but to see a women's team with actual size that we 6'6", 6'5", 6'4",
6'7". There's ladies, a 6'7" in there.
Yeah. And because as good as they were, I think I said it before with Matthew Mitchell. Victoria Dunlap was like 6'1", and she was.
They struggle with size with him. That was always their Achilles heel.
They had to press and try to pressure and to keep from getting punished inside. They had to try to, disrupt you on the perimeter, because if you got it inside on them, it was a wrap. So, and those were good teams. They made Elite Eight. They had Ryan Howard. They had this, but now legit size for the women is going to be. That's going to be different for Kentucky fans. Just like everything Mark Pope is doing is going to be different. Just brand new slate is clean for both sides, and everybody's a lot of excitement for both sports, both basketball teams.
No doubt. No, Kenny. I mean, you're seeing them in the top 25 on top 25 like way too early when they won like they won 4 SEC games last year, and they won 2 2 years before that, or something like that. 2 the year before that. Like, they have been in the bottom of the barrel of the SEC. They haven't been good at all those last 2 years under Kyra Elzy, and you're with one off season, you're seeing them pop up in way too early top 25s. They're projected to make the NCAA tournament. Like, there's an awesome buzz over there too with what Kenny Brooks is doing, and I know it's kind of been a little unfortunate in a sense for him and for Nick Mingione and what they're doing over on the baseball side of things, like getting overshadowed by this new regime, here, where I think they would have been the programs you're really excited about, and the men's programs probably you don't want to think about them because they pissed you off so much and they're just running it back next year. But there's that new juice with Mark Pope, and it's Kentucky men's basketball. It is what it is. But you definitely can't take away or not you don't want to ignore what Kenny Brooks and his new staff is doing there on the women's side, because they're building a beast pretty damn quick. Are they going to be South Carolina? No. But they're going to be a really competitive team that is going to, I think, make the NCAA tournament. They're going to make fans excited about women's basketball. They're going to make fans go into that renovated Memorial gymnasium and fill the place a little bit. And it's going to be fun. I'm really excited to watch that team up close and personal, come November. And you got some star players, man. Like Georgia Amore is a superstar talent, and she's going to be playing at Kentucky. And obviously, outside of Ryan Howard, man, like they've had some really good players, like the Macy Morrises of the world, but they just haven't had. They haven't had the teams as a whole, or they haven't had the outside of Ryan Howard. Rather, they just haven't had that one superstar that puts eyeballs on you every time you play. And Amore is pretty damn close to that.
Yeah, it's few and far, or it's a little bit of time in between when they get those players.
Is Valerie still Ryan Howard and now possibly Amore here?
And Michaela Epps was there.
Michaela Epps,
and then but then it's just, but now the way he's recruiting, he's gonna have a squad.
Yes.
He won't. Amore will be gone after next year, but he's got a good foundation, and he's off to a really good start.
Yeah, and they're out there making offers on that 25, 26 class every day from what I've seen. So he's working hard. He's getting them back to where, well, he might bring them to new heights. He's trying to get them to new heights. It starts with getting back to what you were under Matthew Mitchell or getting close to that. But I have a feeling he's a guy who's going to take them to some spots maybe they haven't even seen before. That's why he did a Tech.
Absolutely. Schedule came out today for the NFL. Your Giants, my Cowboys. Been leaked for a little bit, but now the official schedule release show just happened. So you guys get to face Saquon twice in a Philly uniform. So I'm sure the fan base has feelings about that.
Yeah. We'll look. It's a tough business, but we'll be ready for that.
Y'all got Wandale and Andrew Phillips. You got the Kentucky ties for your squad there. So there's that. Quarterback, all eyes on the quarterback again for the Giants this year. Is that where the first?
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's a big. Obviously, this is the year where Daniel Jones is making the most of his money. You can pretty much get out of that deal pretty cheap next year. Obviously, the Giants didn't feel confident enough to take, which I'm glad they didn't, but they weren't confident enough in Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy to take them sixth. Again, glad they didn't. I think those were the right decisions. But that leaves Daniel Jones as the guy, assuming he's healthy. It's really, for me, my biggest thing with Jones is because when he's been healthy and in there consistently, he's done some good things. We saw 2022, they don't do what they do in 2022, win a playoff game without Daniel Jones. The game he played against Minnesota in the playoffs was the best game of his life in the NFL. And he did some really, he protected the football all year. He didn't put up amazing numbers, but, a guy who can run it, guy who can do a little bit of everything, and enough to win you some games in the NFL. And when you have those guys, it's hard to let go of them. So I understand why they had to make the deal they did with him. But for him, man, we're talking injuries every year of his career but one. And it's not like they've been like he's had 2 neck injuries now. He's had just tore his ACL. He's had a leg issue. So he's just a guy you haven't been able to keep on the field. So if he's healthy, fully healthy, this is a big year to see if he can be the guy or not. And if not, like I said, he can get out of it pretty easy next year and, figure out if you want to do the free agency path, trade path, early draft path if you're picking early. So we'll see what happens. But, schedule wise, I like their first 2 games. I think Minnesota and Washington are doable, but then they have a stretch from week 3 to 8. Where it's at Cleveland, home on Thursday night against your Cowboys, at Seattle, home for Sunday night against Cincy, home against Philly, and at Pittsburgh on a Monday night. Like that is a brutal slate right there. So, that I think, getting through those like around 500 will be kind of the telltale sign if they can have a season that maybe some are not expecting them to have or not. So those are kind of my takeaways just looking at it.
Yeah.
And they're playing Germany, which I just – whatever. They're playing Carolina, so at least they should win that game.
That's right. Yeah. Cowboys, they get Detroit again, which probably should have lost to them last year.
Yeah, you guys thank you to Dan Skipper or the refs, whoever you want to thank on that.
San Francisco again, which that's Sunday night game prime time, and we've had issues with them.
Yeah, everyone does though. In fairness,
yeah, Eagles, which probably split with them again, but the Eagles, Texans are just on a trajectory right now, man. Cincinnati, if you get Burrow healthy, that'll be tough.
Yeah, the NFC East and AFC North pairing is not fun for our two teams because that AFC North is all four teams are really good. Like, yeah. I mean, I think the Steelers roster isn't great, but they always find a way with Mike Tomlin there. I think we'll see what Russell Wilson or Justin Fields does, but they're gonna what they're gonna be defensively, what they're gonna be coaching wise, and then Cleveland coming off a 10-win season.
Yeah, we go there week one.
Yeah, and they're a defensive team too. Like they are really, really good defensively, and we all know what Baltimore can do, and we all know what
Garrett is going to be testing out our new makeshift O-line.
Yeah, that's a welcome to the league moment for Tyler Guyton and co.
My God.
For any team. Giants play them like week 3, so they got monsters on that defensive line.
Yep. So it'll be here before we know it, but the NFL does what they do, and they make it year round. So
there's always something to talk about with you.
It's like a holiday. Hey, the schedule came out. We should have been off work today for this.
Yeah, I saw the Giants are releasing some sort of 100th year anniversary uniforms tomorrow. So I'm still on the boat. Like they should just. They have those Color Rush blue jerseys that they have, and then their white, their Color Rush white jerseys are just they're all their 80s, 90s uniform. Just bring those back full time. They're so beautiful. They're some of they might be the best in the NFL, unbiased, like literally. Like
the ones that Sims and Taylor wore had Giants on the side. Yeah,
bring them back. Bring them back. So
Mark Bavaro running over 12 tacklers.
12 49ers. Yeah. Like bring those back full time. And then we'll see what they come out with tomorrow. But that's just my last little NFL thing. I saw there's more news to talk about. And this Hard Knocks thing that the Giants are on, where it's off season. It's not the training camp, but it's like a first time thing. I think that's really, I'd love to see it with any team. So it's cool to be mine. I'm glad it's not the training camp. Hard Knocks, it's like a curse. But that'll be interesting too.
Yeah, we got a Jerry Jones Netflix deal coming.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll be watching that too. Is Cal gonna make a cameo?
Hey, he's Arkansas guy now. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Cal, Jimmy Johnson, and Jerry Jones
talking NIL
on a yacht somewhere. Absolutely. There'll be more content on that documentary than the Chicken Man one. So. My fault. Hey,
that's funny.
You do your thing, Chicken Man.
You do your thing, but just like, man, you got that out quick.
Yeah, you did. It's got to be first. He wanted to be first, and he was
first. He was first.
I got 29 minutes here for y'all. Here it is.
Crazy. Just insane how fast you can do things on the internet nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, this was fun, man. We streamed another episode. Appreciate y'all commenting and watching, and like I said, keep following us, keep coming back. We appreciate the interaction. Be back next Wednesday, and y'all know we do the emergency thing too. When we need to do emergency episodes, we'll have one for y'all. But we'll see how and when they use these last few booms for basketball. See what happens with baseball. Hopefully, talking about a series win or sweep of Vanderbilt and an outright SEC championship next week, heading into Hoover for the tournament. Talk about that and whatever else happens between now and then. Aaron Gershon, my name is Vandy Hardy. It's been another episode of Believe in Kentucky. Check Aaron out on the Cat's Paw, and y'all keep coming back. We appreciate you. We'll see y'all next week on Believe in Kentucky, Believe Podcast Network.